Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome aboard the whole reproduction. I nearly said whole prototype because both tanks look very similar. And in many aspects they are very similar. And in a nutshell, you can say that the whole reproduction is an improved version of the prototype with better armor from the front and better mobility, at least when it's fully upgraded, and even stock it's not that slow. The majority of the interiors and side armor and so on is much the same, however you have to pay with it for a 1.0 battle rating increase. That brings us then to Kursk. Kursk is a map that, much like I guess Fulda, gets misplayed a lot. Now for Fulda I'm not quite sure about this, but I'm really sure about Kursk. I do not go for the middle, I do not go for the left flank, I go for the right flank. And I have a very specific play pattern that I perfection to a certain degree, like a Swiss clock. I go not directly to C, but a bit parallel to it, and once the time is right for it, I turn into to go directly to C to have my frontal armor facing towards potential enemies. And then we have to talk about battle rating 7.0, which the whole reproduction has. It is a bit of a problem. Why? Well, because you get up tiered every single game to 7.7. 7.7 means, well, that you could support a mouse if you play with the Germans, but very often these days the Japanese tanks get matched up with the Americans and the British against the Soviet and German forces. Not every game, but often. And that means you have German tanks as targets, which is, you know, something for a change, as an actual Axis power. Just think about that. Very realistic in tank RP. So I spotted here an object 120, just in a moment he is visible, there he is, and I try to get a shot at him. So he's not concentrating on me, doesn't expect me, and well, the first shot misses and I move on to going to C, but I do not really have to change my course. I don't have to show the side of my tank. This is the difference. And then I have this shot at him, correcting my aim compared to the previous shot. God, is that satisfying. So, Kursk, I go for C. C is the best part you can go for. As long as not a lot of heat FS or something like that is involved. So I guess that was the importance of removing the Soviet Object 120, which has a lol pen gun. Once I have captured C, or I can move on to go between B and their spawn zone, and I can farm their tanks. And yes, this is one of the few maps that I actually use spawn pushing tactics. So it's open for debate, let's put it that way. That was massive misplay by the RE251, and now I move on. And here we can see then the big difference compared to a Ferdinand or a Jagdtiger, and also the prototype version, because I can actually move up that hill quite well. What we're talking about on a stock tank is a 65-ton tank, so that's a lot of metal, but we have a 973 horsepower engine at relatively low RPM, so that's good, and your top speed is 40 kilometers an hour. However, when you try to turn the tank, it's awful. Oh, it's really awful. It reminds me like the T29 all over again, but I have big hopes that it gets better once I get, for example, the tracks or the filters, transmission, engine, whatever, so I can turn better. So in this respect it's sluggish and not as good as the prototype, but again it relies in the upgrades, I guess. Then let's talk about all the other upgrades, and actually there is not a lot, so that's good, I guess, for stock grind purposes. So we have the Type 2 APAG as the main shell on this gun, and that's a fantastic run. 16 kilogram heavy warhead with a muzzle velocity of 1000 meters per second, so practically long 88 terms. Then we also have 200 grams of TNT in the shell, which is just like the post-war shell on the Russian 122mm gun, the BR-471D, I guess. and we have 227 millimeters of penetration at point blank range, and even at 1,000 meters we're looking at 200 millimeters of penetration. So it's very comparable with the long 88. And then there is the reload. The reload on the prototype on an ace true is, as we all know, 8.6 seconds. And even on the Holy prototype we have the same reload. So that's fantastic, alright? So really nothing to complain about it. It's like an improved long 88, but you suffer a little bit with the penetration, but it's alright, I guess, because your protection is just 25 millimeters short compared to the upper casement of the Jagdtiger, which sits at 7.3 and is known for its armor. Then there's also the upper frontal plate, 120 millimeters compared to the Hori prototypes, 75 millimeters. And again we have 70 millimeters of sloping, so even APDS struggles to go through that. And it's just a fantastic tank in this respect. So then you see this battle and you think, wow, this tank is fantastic. And it is a good tank, I have to give it that. Especially look at that shot. Oh, that was dirty. That Dicker Max didn't have a good time. And then there is my friend in the Sherman. Just blast right through the front. Good stuff. Now those were of course inferior tanks which struggled to go through my armor. But there are a much lower battle rating, so the Germans are dipping into their reserves, and I guess we kicked also the Russians out of the map so far. So in this respect you might think, boy, this tank is awesome. However, so far the Object 120 didn't shoot me, the RE251 didn't shoot me, and furthermore there were no IS-6s in this match. Oh god, thankful. So when you face an IS-6, what can you do? You cannot go through the hull, you cannot go through the turret front. All that you have to shoot at is the cupola, and if he uses a bush on that, good luck hitting it. However, then he has a damn hard time going through your front as well. It's possible, but he has a damn hard time. And when he wants to go through the mid plate on the lower chassis, so to speak, then he has trouble, because he might penetrate there, he might kill the radio operator and the driver, and also the transmission, but what he doesn't do is kill the entirety of your tank. And this is why this tank is also very good. It can absorb the damage. I've talked a lot about it on the Hori prototype tank review, and please don't misinterpret this as a tank review. It's just the first impressions with a few hard facts thrown in. I like this tank, I really do, but I get so annoyed when I have to face constantly IS-6 after IS-6 after IS-6. And I want to enjoy the game, I want to really talk about different things, but then every tank at that battle rating just faces hordes of IS-6s. Except in this battle, and this was one of the reasons why I wanted to show it to you, because it was damn, well, it was very, very enjoyable. There is another Object 120, and just before I pull the trigger, a T-34 kills him. So I have a look at A, and I think about, should I cap it, should I go for it? But then again, there are better tanks for doing this, to cross the open terrain. Also, I see no enemy player. And then we can see how kind of problematic it is to turn this tank around. So this is something that you have to keep in mind. It feels a little bit like the American T-29 premium heavy tank in this respect, compared to the T-34 heavy tank. All in all, I think it's a solid tank, it's fun to play, and I can't wait to show you more games in it, especially when it's fully upgraded, so we can really feel the difference. But one thing that I have to point out is you have just this APHE shell, and that's mostly all you need. You have no APDS, you have no APCR, you have no heat FS or something like that, just raw APHE and a HE shell. This HE shell is okay, but most people will not find it useful. Furthermore, we have no machine gun and the side protection is still like 60 millimeters. So keep that in mind. At this point, I investigated this map area in the middle as well. So you have to kind of see where I went everywhere. I went to C, then I went up to the enemy's spawn zone, then to B, and now returning back. So this tank has good mobility. Look at the speed. It's nothing to really cough on. And then I can just give you a little bit of education about German CAS. It's bad, especially after the removal of the HVAC belt from the Horton, which was a stupid decision. And I can even angle myself against the shallow attack angles from, well, this door 335B. And ultimately he crashes. So that was, I guess, the moment where my internet also lagged a little bit, but it doesn't matter. C gets decapped, so it was good that I was in the vicinity, and I go for the investigation of that, because I don't like my C capture zone being capped by the enemy team. Funny enough, it is a German tank that is in the capture zone, and it's a Panther, and I guess he sees me, because the moment that I stand still to line up the shot, he tries to angle, but German side armor these days, nah. And there is a Coelian, German AAA. Fantastic, right? Yeah, except he can't do anything except maybe trying to track me. So that was again a lag issue. I didn't fire the shot. Just now I fired it and now it gets registered. So that was a bit of a lag on my part of the connection, I guess. And I was actually pretty impressed that he also survived the second shot. I'm not quite sure here. And the ammunition didn't blow up. It just got removed. So that was impressive. But the third shot will do the charm. Or third time's the charm, and the shot will do that job. I think I mixed it up a little bit. You know, my English is perfect. People admire me for my English, I have to say. All around the world it's known that I speak English in such a way that even British people are impressed. Not really, but I hope you got the joke. So, yeah, and here I'm going back to, well, try to kill some enemies. But again, now there is nothing left, I guess. So this battle is awesome. It was awesome. It was enjoyable. I hope I could tell you something about Kursk and what people misinterpreted. I mean, I was once told that I love Kursk because I get to the middle. No, I don't. I despise the middle. It's a bad part of the map. And the spawn zones are not there where I want them to. There are not enough players on both sides. The objectives are not very well positioned, to be honest. The village in the middle is ruining it all. The middle hill or the middle ridgeline could be reworked a little bit into a third dip zone, but that would require rework of the map, and that's, you know, time consuming, so Gaijin will not do it. So at the end of the day, we had a pretty amazing battle. I like the Hori production. I cannot wait to, well, present you the fully upgraded version when we have everything unlocked and I have some decent footage to show you. Maybe in a tank review, a proper one, who knows. But for now, we can see that the results are just fine. And we can see that we have 42,000 civilians and 3,634 research points. Without a booster, just a premium account for a match that we won with 7 kills and 1 capture zone, and that we survived. Really, Gaijin? Is that your policy in tanks? I dislike it. Anyways, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please give this video a like if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more. Let me in the comment section your opinion about this tank, and we'll see each other on the battlefields of War Thunder.